As an artist who paints nature, it is also in my interest to protect the environment so that I can continue painting it and enjoying it and preserving it. So I try in different ways to be eco-friendly and use eco-friendly materials, and it's not always easy because oftentimes paints are hard to find that are non-toxic or that don't cause any damage to the environment at all. But it is important to make an effort to reduce the environmental impact. So for example, I often use old rags. For example, this is, it was a pillowcase. And it is now a rag that I use to wipe my paints on. But it was a pillowcase that I used for a long time until it got too old and raggedy. And now it is serving its purpose in my art. Another thing that I use is a wooden palette. Try to make sure the wood is FSC certified. So the wooden palette is reusable, unlike disposable paper palettes. And I do this in order to avoid generating more waste. Also, I use recycled and reused cardboard to protect and deliver my paintings. The company that I buy my canvases from reuses the boxes and uses recycled paper as well. So that's one way in which you can also help a little bit to preserve the environment.
I reuse cups. I never buy cups or containers, but I wash out the residue of food products in jars and reuse those for paint and for storing things like varnish or mixtures. In some of my paintings, I use water-soluble oil paints with linseed oil, so I don't need toxic chemicals like turpentine to thin the paint. I never use aerosols or spray varnish, and I use Golden's polymer varnish, which is less toxic than MSA varnish.
So another thing that I do is I get these jars of sauce or food, and then I'll take off the label, and then I clean them and I paint them, and I use these as cups or to store food or other things like that. For example, I often use them to store rice, flour, beans, things like that. And they're really cute and useful. I try to use just the amount of paint that I need for a painting to avoid being wasteful by squeezing too much paint onto the palette initially. I mean, you can always add more later, but it's impossible to put the excess paint back in the tube. I use mostly acrylic paints in my art, which I know is not that eco-friendly for two main reasons. Acrylic paint isn't water-based, it's plastic-based with a solvent that makes it water-soluble. So rinsing acrylic paintbrushes in the sink causes microplastic to end up in the environment. It's better to dispose of leftover acrylics in solid form to prevent microplastic pollution. I want to opt for water-based paints and plant and mineral-based pigments and other non-toxic options. Ideally, I would like to use pigments found in the landscapes I paint, and that's one of the goals I have for my future artwork. I would like to experiment with different pigments I can find in the earth and in the plants of the places I paint, and that way bring a piece of the place into the painting itself. I just need to go to those places and start collecting pigments. The most important thing is to make an effort to preserve and protect the environment in any way you can. Small steps can go a long way in time. So thank you so much for hearing me out.